More than 2 million signatures have been gathered in an effort to oust California Governor Democrat Gavin Newsom. Now, Newsom has repeatedly stated that his recall is driven by the followers of former President Trump and Republicans, but CNN's Jake Tapper pushed back on some of those claims.
You've been characterizing the recall supporters in a certain way. Recall backers say that more than 2 million people have signed the petition. You can't think that all 2 million are, as you characterize them, anti-vaxxers, QAnon conspiracy theorists, and anti-immigrant Trump supporters, can you?
Just the lead proponents. The lead proponent of this, the lead proponent of this recall effort, by the way, that predates the pandemic, is someone that believes we should microchip immigrants.
But what do you think of the 2 million or so Californians who have signed it, who've signed this petition? I'm not talking about the leaders that you just went after. Certainly all 2 million Californians who signed this aren't all Trumpsters. I mean, we have interviewed people who were supporters of yours who are now supporting the recall effort. In large part, at least according to anecdotally, the interviews are reporters on the ground have been doing because they think that the measures you took were too harsh, too aggressive.
Interesting. It's the sixth time California voters have attempted to recall Newsom in just 2 years. Our colleague, The Hill's Reid Wilson, joins us now for more on Newsom's fate. Reid, there's a lot going on here. I mean, it's the first successful effort, I believe, that getting those 2 million signatures has prompted a real thing. It could be a threat to him. Could he be Gray Davis? Just break down all of the elements for what's going on.
Right. So recall efforts are common in California. Recall successes are not. So the fact that they have now forced an election in which Newsom's going to have to defend himself is significant. It's only the second time it's happened in state history. And as you mentioned, the only other time it happened was Gray Davis back in 2003. And that one succeeded. And Gray Davis lost his job to a guy you might have heard of named Arnold Schwarzenegger. So what happens now is the Secretary of State's office is going to count the signatures. They need 1.5 million to be verified. So about 75% of those that have been turned in. In early counts, they're well north of the 75% figure. They're in the mid 80s. So this thing is almost certainly going to qualify. And it's going to become the biggest electoral contest of this year, of 2021. It's not clear exactly when the election will be held. It's likely to be held in August or later. I think we're probably on track for a November election. Interesting thing about this is an atmosphere in which recalls are more likely to succeed in getting on the ballot, but less likely to succeed at the ballot box. And that's because the California of today is far more polarized than the California of 18 years ago, and it's far more Democratic. So back then, Democrats had about a 6 or 7 point voter registration advantage. Today, Democrats have an almost 2-to-1 voter registration advantage over Republicans. At the same time, those Republicans hate Gavin Newsom, and they are motivated to sign these petitions and get this measure on the ballot. In talking to the recall organizers, they say they've got a lot of Democrats who've signed this. I don't think there's any way we can actually measure that until the Secretary of State's office actually releases this information on who's actually signed it. But so as we move forward to this election now, I mean, this is going to be a multi-million-dollar campaign, and it's clear that Republicans see this as an opportunity to take down one of former President Trump's leading antagonists in Gavin Newsom, and it's clear that Democrats are trying to stay united. One of the big things that hurt Gray Davis 18 years ago was when his own lieutenant governor, Cruz Bustamante, added his own name to the ballot and sort of gave Democrats an opportunity to vote in favor of recalling Gray Davis. No prominent Democrat has said they will run in this recall election, and the California Democrats are really trying to hold that line. I'm going to be watching that really closely.
So apparently a Republican recall strategist, this is according to Politico, tweeted that those who signed the petition, 64% Republican, 25% no party preference, 9% Democrat, 1.6% other. I don't know what that would be. So anyway, that's what they're putting out there, was that it was about 9% of Democrats who signed this petition. Reid, I understand that it's his handling of the coronavirus that has driven a lot of the energy around this recall effort. What are some of the specific missteps that are being pointed to?
Well, it's they're pointing to the lockdown orders that went into effect About a year ago at this time, Gavin Newsom was the first governor in America to impose lockdown orders and restrictions, starting in the Bay Area and then expanding to the rest of the state. A lot of people were frustrated, especially in the very conservative Northern California counties where there were fewer cases at first. They wanted to know why they were locked down. That's sort of the genesis of this recall effort. It comes out of, is it Placer County? I'm blanking on which county it was, where the guy is, the main organizer is located. One of the real big moments that sparked this, that took this from yet another effort to recall Gavin Newsom to something serious, was last year when Gavin Newsom was photographed at a restaurant called the French Laundry in Napa, having a maskless dinner with people who are not in his family indoors. Now, the French Laundry is one of the most expensive restaurants in America. He was celebrating a birthday of a friend of his who happens to be a lobbyist for the State Hospital Association. Not a good one. And that really sparked the attention and some of the backlash that recall organizers have used to force this on the ballot. I suspect that if you look at when the signatures were collected, the vast majority of them will have come after that French Laundry incident.
That's a really good point. It's interesting, like you were talking about in terms of it might be easier to happen, and then in terms of the actual results, it actually may be harder. I guess I'm curious for what are the, I think people don't understand. In terms of the opponents who run against Newsom, how does that process work as well?
Right. Yeah. This is just a crazy part of the process. So a voter who gets a ballot in California. Oh, and by the way, I should have mentioned the state legislature earlier this year passed a measure that will make all California elections this year held in 2021 mail-in only. So every voter gets a ballot, which is going to be great for Newsom's effort to get those Democrats voting against the recall. But those voters have to take a two-step process. They get a ballot that says, do you want to recall Gavin Newsom, yes or no? Now, if you vote no, and the recall fails, then the second question doesn't matter. But if the recall passes, the second question then is, who do you want to replace him? And that ballot is going to be massively crowded. Back in 2003, 135 candidates ran to replace Gray Davis, including a porn star, a porn magnate, separate people, as well as Gary Coleman, the actor Gary Coleman. Who else? Peter Uberoth, the former commissioner of baseball, ran, a bunch of other people, and including, again, a guy named Arnold Schwarzenegger. This time around, the big difference is there is no Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? There is no one person who can consolidate the anti-Newsom vote. Schwarzenegger got about 48% in the recall and therefore won the election. Cruz Bustamante finished second at about 31%. So this time around, everybody on the Republican side is thinking about running, and everybody who's an influencer or whatever you think this might help your business is going to run too. I had one close Newsom advisor tell me that he thinks there could be 1,000 people on the ballot this time.
My God.
Because the qualification requirements really haven't changed. But again, if people vote yes on that recall, and the second step, somebody gets 9-10%, and that's a plurality, well, you could have a governor of California who gets 9 or 10% of the vote.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Reid, thank you so much for breaking it down. We appreciate it. Great to see you.
Yeah. See ya.
We'll have more Rising for you after this.